And welcome, everybody. Jeez. So, trying to get a habit here of doing some vertical live sessions. I understand a lot of people like the videos, they might like the books, they've seen the regular live, maybe they've done the Itzhak Bentov meditation. This is a new kind of thing that I'm trying to do here. This is for new for 2026. It's a vertical live super podcast session, is what I'm going to call it. It's the ultimate super podcast session. This is starting this new for 2026. And basically, man, I'll tell you what. I'm going to start off with the problems that I had with vertical, and I almost quit vertical. I did quit vertical for a long time, is because it's really hard to moderate. Man, there's a lot of bots, there's a lot of trolls, there's a lot of people trying to advertise on these vertical lives, and they just, they're distracting. They're not reaching out to the people that I really want to reach out, and the people aren't able to reach out to me because there's all this, what I'm going to throw out there as decoherence. Okay, if the communication is down. Okay, so I did turn it off, the chat, for this episode specifically, because I do think it's going to keep the riffraff out. I think once they realize that they're not going to be able to comment and publicize on the channel or use it for advertisement, they'll simply move along. At least until I get a permanent monitor in here. Like I said, new for 2026. I'm hoping to look back at the end here of 2026 and look back to this first episode of the vertical live show that I'm doing here, and just see progress. I just want to see that the quality of my work's getting a little bit better. I want to see that that some of my stories and stuff that are reaching out to people, and I'm hoping to do giveaways, big money, cash prizes, that kind of stuff. I feel like a lot more people could use that kind of stuff these days. Just fun stuff. I think that more people, I'm just going to go out there and say, I definitely think more people that have the money should do more giveaways. One of the coolest things about my uncle, God rest his soul to this day, who lived down in LA, one of the most charitable things I ever saw him do is he gave a big thing of almonds. He'll empty his change jar to help people. If he sees it and sees that people need help, just to send that, because it didn't cost him anything. And I think a lot of people who have that extra little change, I see a lot of them flashing it. I see a lot of them, and I know that they're helping on their own level, but just that daily love. I think if more people felt daily love in their life, and I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be money. It can be food. It can be support. It can be that kind of stuff, just reaching out and helping people. And even if you don't have anything, there's ways you can support people that still need help. By telling them your stories. Like, I can tell you, man, I was on drugs. I've been on alcohol. My life started off really bad. Just by sharing stories sometimes and people seeing where you're at, sometimes it does help. I do, like I said, by the end of this year, I want to give out cash prizes. I want to help people. So that's where I'm at with this show. I got to start somewhere, and that's what I like to do. I do some meditations. I like to do some eBooks. I still got a regular job. I do science research, and I get invited to do science crazy stuff. But what I really want to do is take my money because I'm happy with what I have. And I think that's the thing. I think more people realized they were content and the money was still stacking. If you took a little bit of that money and they just spread the wealth a little bit, I'm not talking about giving away your whole stack. I'm just talking about the smallest amount of change to some of these people can change people's lives. And that's just a fact, and I don't know if it was more like that back in the day. I know that the economy was a little bit different, times are different, and I'm not going to say that's going to change the world or save the world, but I will say that starting there would help. I know there's a lot of super great wealth out there. I know that, people could use a lot of love right now, and money, unfortunately, does solve some problems. You know, there's a lot of other things going on in our world, and I totally hear you. Our politics is all fucked up. There's drugs, there's fentanyl, there's people on prescriptions. There's a lot of things that, we need. I think love somehow needs to play a bigger factor in that to solve those problems. I think positive love, heart, respect. I saw a lot of people's lives change just with that stuff alone. People that were hooked on a lot of bad stuff, they came off of that because of love, because of respect, got their lives together. I'm a good example of that, as well as people I saw way deeper down the hole when I was down there come out and live a good, happy, positive life. And I think that a lot of people have that opportunity. For me, right now in 2026, I was kind of ramping up. In 2025, it was kind of finding out what I kind of wanted to do, and then 2026 was about that New Year's for me was about refining it and saying let's go for it. Because what I do find is for a lot of people, when they start doing something they really like, whether it's art, or whether it's ebooks, whether it's just talking on here, they find that certain things you only do for so long. Like they may even be really good at. You might really like your favorite actor, actresses, or favorite YouTube people on here, but they may not hate. They may hate it, and it's also limiting. Man, you can only when there's only so many things you can talk about on your main subject so many times where you really have to step outside of your comfort zone. A good example I always like to use for myself is I really like to do my Itzhak Bentov meditations, and I talk about research, science, and that kind of stuff. But when it came with the meditation, there was only so much I could do. There's only so much information I can develop and make so many ebooks out of before I'm like, listen, I don't want to, I don't want to put anything more in this because I don't think I have anything else to add to this. So that's where I'm at with science and consciousness research. I like to really check things out, develop something, learn it, crush it. And if I have nothing more really to contribute at that point, I like to just leave it at that for that chapter, for that book one, do some other stuff. If I feel like I have something more to contribute to it later, maybe I'll add a supplement to it. Maybe if there's enough, do a book two, but that's what I've got. Really, what I'm lining up for this year is I'd like to do meditation still, and it'd be great to do it full time. I'm going to get a couple of students, um, and teach them that, but I'm also going to learn some yoga because a lot of people want to learn yoga, and I'll tell you what, they really like to watch yoga from a big guy like me, 6'2", don't know anything about it. And then I learn a bit and it helps, which it had with my back and some stuff. And they're like, if it's working for him, it could work for me. And that's really, there's some truth behind that. Because you see, when I watch some people that are in super prime condition doing some stuff easy and like, yeah, everybody can do it, and then I'm just like, you know what, I'm almost calling BS on some of that stuff but when you see someone start off who's not in good condition and be like, you know what, he's looking better, color in his face is looking better, and what's he doing? I'm right now. I'm getting some good sleep before I go to bed. I am just a little bit. Instead of going to bed 12, 1, 2, 3, I'm 47. I'm coming to bed, getting to bed. I'm asleep by 11 is what I like to see. I try not to drink as much caffeine at night. I try to get into a good tea. In fact, recently I'm trying to replace a little bit of coffee with balm teas. And I'm experimenting to see if my body, because I know that would be better for me. This caffeine is, oh man, I love it. Don't get me wrong. Starbucks and the drinks, but the fact of the matter is, caffeine's straight poison. Trees produce it to keep. It's an insecticide. So all I can say is that with removing caffeine and getting better sleep, doing the meditations, when I was able to go for daily walks, I felt a million times more better. And I'm not on any medications, nothing like that. Um, so yeah, it's going pretty good. Like I said, 2026, gonna continue meditation, continue writing ebooks. I'd like to go on a trip this year. I'd really like to go. I haven't been really on a vacation in a few years now. And I don't even really want like a vacation like a lot of people would think a vacation is. I'd like to go see some spots that were just kind of important to me, anyways. Back to where I used to live, and I'd like to go see Itzhak Bentov's kind of thing. The Monroe Institute would be on the list. I'd like to go see Tom Campbell. There's a few people doing the research that I'm doing right now that it would be really cool to go and reach out, just for me to have some closure and complete chapter. Because you can only watch and read so much, and your own questions that you have, some of them don't get answered. So unless you do go on the, Lord knows I've been on plenty of journeys in my life. I've traveled the world, lived in LA, San Diego, San Francisco, Hawaii twice, lived in Nevada, lived out here in Michigan 2 times, different times pre-COVID and after COVID. Lived out in Washington State for years with my wife, and in the future, we were planning on moving. Just to be honest with you, I think that Northern Michigan's not where it should be right now. I was expecting them to put more money into their parks and systems, and it's overpriced here. It feels, I'm a Californian. When I say crap's expensive here, you can take that to the bank. I lived on the West Coast for years, and living out here in Michigan, it's really expensive, especially for me, just trying to do arts and meditation. And, I still work, and I work in retail. My wife works in retail, and, I have a tool. I work in tools, let me tell you that, and I really enjoy my job because what I learn in tools, I also learn and mess with in my off time. Like I said, I try to come up with some consciousness tools and whatever, mess around with my own head and see what I can come up with. But I like doing this. One of the main things that I do on my channel that I really love to do is I'll find out about something, and if I don't think that it's been told a lot, or a lot of people don't know it, that blew my mind, I figure that it might blow a bunch of other people's minds. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I've got a small poodle over here. I'll show you. Special bonus right here. I've got a small poodle. That's Lamb Chop. She's a good girl. She's got her bed and her choo-choo in there and everything else. That is our only little pup. She's even been to Hawaii. She's been to the Oregon coast. She's been coast to coast. She's a good girl. We also have one cat. His name's Figaro. He's a black tabby. One cat, one dog. He's yours. I'm giving lots of love. But no, like I said, I'm gonna be on here. I'm gonna do one vertical a day. I'm gonna keep it light. I turned off chat because last time there was a bunch of advertisements, and it just, the right people weren't getting across and that kind of stuff. And this isn't, I figure that if people are interested in me or my channel or what I have to say, they'll come and take a look at my channel. I want to take away from those trolls and those advertisers and stuff. At least for now, at least until the moderation gets better, or I can have someone do some moderating for me. But no, I'm excited. I turned this little room behind me. It was a spare bedroom, into just this kind of meditation art room that I really dig. It's slowly transforming over time this year. Really going to put a lot of work into the house and the backyard and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited. But let me see here. I'm kind of curious to see what is the kind of curious to see how long it is supposed to be, or a podcast, vertical podcast. That's what I'm going to try to make this here going forward. So, why, guys? I've been having so much that I wanted to say on New Year's, and I said, let me just wait until I have a podcast, and I'll have so much to say. And this is what I'm realizing as I'm saying this, is that I need to put more structure in these podcasts. And I'm going to slowly have guests on the show, because there's people that I really want to be on the show and talk and just I have a lot of questions for a lot of people out there. So, like I said, episode 1 podcast. Going to be doing some cool interviews with a lot of people and just reaching out and seeing some really cool stuff. I'm going to be taking everybody on adventures where I go here. We're up in northern Michigan. It's snowy as heck. Um, like I said, I've got my dog Lamb Chop here. We're going to bring her into the show as well. Yeah, like I said, luckily it's just starting to rain, melting a lot of the snow, which is good and bad for a lot of people up here in northern Michigan. Up here in northern Michigan, people like their rides and they like their, what do they call them? Snowmobiles. A lot of people have snowmobiles up here, but they haven't been able to use them this year a whole lot because, you need a lot of snow to be cutting through here. And it snowed, and then either the snow was so horrible it was snowing, or right after it snowed, it was raining. So, but so that's what's been going on with December 2025, going into here we are, January 2026. So I'm excited. Snow's melting. I really want to go out for more walks, even if it's rainy. I can put a rain jacket on. I'm cool with that. I feel better when I go out there. One of the big recommendations, if people are trying to heal or getting enlightened, is starting to do more walks. I feel that when I really started walking and enjoying it, I put music on. Music definitely helps. Gets you pumped up a little bit, gets you out there, gets the heart pumping. I have to admit, I feel like it's inspired others. I even see my neighbor down the street. His name's Bob. He's really old, and I know his doctor told him, "Hey, you need to start getting more exercise." And I see him out there walking. When I first got here, I was walking to work, and I work pretty far away. Got a bike, started biking to work. I think it's really important. I'm in my later 40s right now. I think it's really important for people to get out there and just get a little bit of exercise, whether it's walking in a park, whatever. People think that's stupid. I think the more that you try to do that and you start, because when I'm out there and I'm feeling better, I start thinking about myself more and caring about myself just a little bit. And then I start thinking about dinner, and instead of going with a greasy burger or pizza, I think, you know what? Why don't I go Chinese tonight? No, Chinese food's still kind of terrible for you. But I am borrowing some things from the Chinese culture, more vegetables, doing less meat, just doing some cooked things, pho, doing also. I had some pho dumplings last night that were really good, and they weren't as bad for me as like I would normally eat, I guess. So I am so glad that my college classes are done. That was another subject that I wanted to talk about on my podcast for my first episode. Let me tell you, because this is a great story, is that going back to school for the first time in 20 plus years at the local community college was nothing that I thought it was going to be. One of the great things about community college is that it's supposed to be inexpensive, easy to access, and easy to do. And that was not what I experienced at all. And I'll throw it out there right now. This one is Kirtland Community College in northern Michigan, but I'm willing to bet cash it's probably happening in your local community college near you. Is that I signed up for 2 online community college classes. They charge me $1,500 and something dollars, and that's for in district, in school, all that stuff, man. $1,500 for 2 online regular classes, and this ain't state college, this ain't university, this was a community college. And then they proceeded to charge me $140 for an ebook. It was online, not even a physical book. So maybe people got slowly accepted that over time. Me, I'm coming from like 20 years ago going to college. I got a physical book. It was $100, but I got the book. I could resell it. And then online classes would have been no 1,500. That community's poor as hell. That community's poor as hell up there. We're not talking about coastal town communities. I'm talking about that place doesn't even have a lake or a river. So when they're charging you, well, we gotta. I understand that tough times call for everybody, but I can't suddenly dollars an hour. That just doesn't. I know you guys can just suddenly start charging that. I'll tell you this last little bit of the story that got me heated, and to this day it's going to bother me because I know that other students got this treatment all over the world when it came to it. Is that when I called, there was there was a lady in finance, and I called her because I was kind of blown away. I wanted to make sure everything I was hearing and paying was legit because a lot of scams out there, a lot of things going on. I just want to touch bases and say, hey, listen, I got charged. Told her the same story. I got charged $1,500, over $1,500 for 2 online community college classes at your college here, and then I got charged $140 for an ebook. I said most of my work was online, off site, on another platform, and I said, does that sound? I said, is that normal? Am I missing something? And that lady was rude as hell because I'm sure she gets this shit all the time. I was trying to be nice, just kind of blown away about it. And she said, Mr. Pyle, she says, I see here on your record that you applied and qualified for FAFSA. So I am assuming you're probably nothing out of pocket. And that blew my mind. I told her, I said, first off, I did qualify and get FAFSA, but that money comes from me. It's taxpayers. So we're all paying for that. So when I question the money for the taxpayers and I get some resistance and attitude like that, I wasn't even asking like that. That made me worried and concerned. But I told her a second thing. I said, listen, I said, I applied late for FAFSA. So you guys rushed me and told me that I had to pay by a certain amount. And then I needed to sign up for this loan that you guys have a connection with the college to get the loan, to pay an interest rate for these people that can't pay this. So there's some other kind of like scammy mechanic going on. And I get it, it's a business. Well, that's what I hear. That's what I'm gonna hear. But community colleges were never supposed to be, you know, a business. And the reason I say that is because they get federal funding. They got approved for federal funding for our tax dollars because of how good of a system that was at the time. That's why we started funding them. But there's a lot of things like I said, the community college system, overcharging, bad quality. They're either getting phased out in the future because you can. Here's the truth that a lot of people aren't telling at home right now is that you can get. I could have got the same quality education that I just received without have given them $1,500. That's the reality. Is that, well, I got to go to university. I've got to go to this community college. I've got to go. A lot of people know that it's not for the education that you're learning. That information was given out freely online years ago. What people are clamoring at paper saying that you accomplished something. But the fact of the matter is nowadays, when a lot of people are using AI to answer their college work or write a paper, it's really not showing what it used to. It's not the standard that it used to be. There was no way around that. Like your SATs back in the day when I was there, or some of these tests, there was no way, uh, not on such a better, grander scale that people are not getting the education that they used to. Back then, people are still 80%, 85, whatever the percentage, was still getting a good, solid education. Nowadays, I'm going to say 72. if I had to guess right now how many people are actually going to college, getting a quality, I'm gonna throw that word in there, quality education. I'm gonna say there's 72% of the U.S. Now, meanwhile, we're testing out horribly. U.S. is testing on the bottom, not the bottom, but for how much our system cost per dollar for the taxpayer and times time, dollars times time we've been paying into that system. What do we got? There's a lot of systems we could have been paying money into that evolved over time that I feel would have been so much better. Right now, a lot of parents pulling their kids out of school, whether they're religious, whether it's for fear, whether there's social bad issues happening there. Um, I know people are getting arrested in schools. What can I say? Even back in my day, man, when I know a lot of people got into fights back in the day when I was in school, and I graduated in, let's see, 97, 90, 98, 97, I think is what it was. Somewhere around there. People were still getting into fights at school, and maybe the cops were called to shake them up, but nobody was doing time. You know what I'm saying? It's assault, and we're suing. And man, suing was a big thing. Actually, it started coming out in my time. People were getting sued for pain and suffering. Even kids knew that growing up in my school. Because what happens is when people got hurt, what they say, I'm suing for pain and suffering. And a lot of that came out because of television, the lady scolding her leg, the McDonald's coffee, and many other crazy, crazy stories. And it doesn't happen as much anymore. People are getting millions of dollars, but it feels like you need to have a $1 million lawyer. And so us regular folks, even if you scolded yourself by some hot coffee, it still happens. You can still get some claims, but their lawyers are so good nowadays. This isn't their first rodeo to claims. I think that's crazy too. I know some companies that have lost people. They've died because of negligence, because of their plan or whatever it was, and people died, and they got, all right, you got to pay $320,000. The thing is if you put a plan together and somebody died with that plan, you're probably going to jail. There's a very thin line between you making a plan and you making a plan under an LLC or something like that. Huge. And there shouldn't be. There should for the right reasons. Why the reasons we set up the LLC system to protect individuals from certain things. But it shouldn't be used as a shield for people to kill other people, which has been used before in the past, or to create dangerous situations. That's what I think about that one. All right, gonna cut this loose. We're gonna be running about 30 minutes on this show. I've got to go talk on another show where I do pretty much the same thing. It's going to be William Pyle art. I'll be doing live talk on there, talking about some of the crazy art and stuff that I do when I'm thinking and trying to work out plans, how structures would work, or if I was trying to think outside the box, what this box would actually look like. So, anyways, I wish you guys all a great day. Thank you for joining this episode. Much love and respect. If I've earned it, hit that like and subscribe. I've written some pretty interesting, crazy ebooks about all sorts of stuff. And I'm trying to do that at least once a month. So if you get a chance, take a look at my link. There might be something for you. And as always, you guys have a wonderful day.